A testamentary trust is a trust that you would create in your last will and testament or in your revocable living trust, and it springs to life at your death. So people get confused, and rightfully so, because there are many different types of trusts. So a testamentary trust is any trust, again, that is in a document that doesn't exist today. It doesn't exist when you sign it, but rather there's some triggering event, such as your death, most likely. And at that event, at your death, if the terms are, the terms would be laid out, and if they're met, then it would spring to existence. For example, in that example I said before, you know, maybe you don't have any known concerns about your children inheriting, but let's say one of your children predeceases you, right? So your actual document will say, if my children shall survive me, let's say my estate is distributed equally to them, outright and free of trust, but then the document would say, if any of my children fail to survive me, then their share will go to their children in trust. It's just an example. So the thing that's going to make this testamentary trust spring into existence is you're gone and one of your children is gone. So that's what gives it life, so to speak. Otherwise, if those conditions aren't met, which you hope they're not in this scenario, if they're not met, then the trust is just words on a piece of paper. It never actually springs into existence and comes into effect. And they can be created for anyone. So I'm using examples as children, but they can be created for a spouse, a child, grandchildren, like I said, or even a parent. I've done parental trust before. But one of the reasons I find that people put off doing estate planning, even for years oftentimes, is because they have minor children or grandchildren or kids that have problems, and they just can't figure out how to leave this money to them. So it's no reason to put off your planning. What we do is we just create ways for them to inherit safely and appropriately and things like that. And also, similarly, a lot of people don't realize that they're minor children. Minors can't inherit legally. So I've had situations where someone has failed to do their planning, and then if you don't have an estate plan, if you don't have a will, your assets will be passed according to the laws of the state, intestate law, it's called. And I've had situations where the parent didn't do any planning, and the laws of intestacy dictated that part of their estate would go to their minor child. So rather than just having to open up a probate at their death, I've actually had to open up guardianships. And a guardianship for a minor, the money that goes to the minor, not the person, not the custody, physical custody, but who has control of the money. And this type of trust is exactly to prevent that from having to happen. Because as you can imagine, guardianships are expensive, time-consuming, difficult, all those things. And we can generally totally avoid that by having a testamentary trust for minors.